SPSN.
Welcome back into another exciting episode of the Scene Project Sports Network. This is CAVS Hour. I am joined, as always, by head coach Tom Culver. Tom, I want to address it right off the top of the show. Congratulations on your recognition and your placement on the Howard Taplett Wall of Fame. That was an awesome ceremony there at halftime, and just so proud of you. Well deserved, sir.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It was kind of surprised when Gary told me a couple 3 weeks ago, but it feels good to be honored by colleagues and stuff and people like that. So it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, and it was a surprise to me. I guess I didn't check the program ahead of time if it was in there or not. So I was kind of addressing one of your old players. Isaac was there. Crown Over obviously was there this weekend, taking in the game. And all of a sudden, I kind of hear the whole thing happening, and made sure to get out there and give you a round of applause. Well deserved. 3 decades you've been in Bon Homme County or around in South Dakota sports and supporting amateur athletes. And more than what you do on the field, it's what you do for these young men and off the field as well. So congratulations to you. Well deserved. I know it's not the end and it's not what you do it for by any means. And I'm sure you're going to keep on coaching as long as you can.
Yeah, I still like doing it. So, I look forward to every day in each season with the kids. So as long as I enjoy it, I'll keep doing it.
That's right. Well, we had quite the game this Friday against Kimball White Lake, a defensive battle in every way. A lot of adversity that the team faced as well. Some turnovers, a blocked punt at one point. There's a lot of things that the boys could have just kind of folded up and given up, but they never did. Pitched a shutout, which is hard to do in high school sports, in any high school sport, much less in football. And with the team that really, it was obvious. They wanted to throw the ball, and they wanted to throw the ball deep down the field, but the defense really, put the screws down and got the job done.
Yeah, our defensive guys and a lot of credit, besides the players, goes to Coach Koch and Van Winkle. That they had them ready, and we spent a lot of time this week defensively. And one of the things after talking to their coach afterwards, he mentioned they only had 52 yards rushing, and they realized that they weren't going to run the ball very well against us, so they started airing it out. And like you said, with adversity, block punt, they got the ball deep in our territory.
Inside the red zone, weren't they? They were down on the 10, 12 yard line, I do believe. It was right there, and you're sniffing and you're going, oh man, this could turn real bad and maybe turn the tide of the game. Yeah,
and they had a couple. They didn't go back in punt formation. They did a quick kick, and then.
Well, the tape is out on the punt block team, isn't it?
Yeah. And so we were, we were down inside the 10, and then we had a punt that wasn't very good. It's just the defense did a great job, and anytime you shut somebody out, especially in 9-man football, it's hard because it's less crowded. The field is still 53.5 yards wide. Like 11-man, there's 4 more players on the field, and the difference between 9 and 11-man is the 2 offensive linemen. You got the same amount of eligible receivers as 11-man, except you have 2 less guys to guard them and to stop them. So to pitch a shutout is quite an accomplishment by the kids.
Yeah, well, and it was impressive to watch. And I was up in the stands. I was sitting next to former coach Pud Will and getting to talk a little, strategy and what he was seeing on the field as well. But, offensively, it was tough for you guys to do what you usually want to do, which is to get that inside running game going. They had some big boys on that defensive line, and they were coming out with 5-man lines at some points to really say, hey, we're not going to let them do what they've done to some of these other teams.
Yeah, and, they, on top of the 5-man line, if they weren't, they were in a 4. Sometimes they went to a 3. And, realistically, it shouldn't bother our offensive linemen because we have rules based on the play call of which way they step, which way they go. And so the rule is, I use this for them to picture that is, if you remember the old 1880 trains and they had the cow catcher on the front, all right, so what you're doing is you're taking your step and you're continually taking those steps in the direction that you're supposed to step at the snap, and anybody that comes in on your track, you're supposed to clear them out. And so, but they were blitzing on top of that, and in fact there was one time for sure I know the guy was offside.
Oh, incredible. And I was going to say there's probably 2 or 3 that he was real close, but the one time he was in the backfield before the ball was snapped, and to have that as a no call was, and I'm not criticizing the referees. I know in real time it's really hard to pick that kind of stuff up. These guys are, not volunteer basis, but they're not professional referees either. So, and you're looking, like you said, the field is 53 yards wide, so they're looking 26 yards across the field to pick it up. But yeah, now is that just something that the kids are picking up on a snap count, or that their team is kind of picking up on that? And then is there an adjustment that you made during the game to kind of change that as well?
Yeah, the big deal here is, we told Madden, you need to start varying the snap count. And it's not only him, I know other quarterbacks do that. They get into a habit and a routine of, going on one or whatever. And so we said, you got to vary it. You got to, in fact, I think it might have been the second quarter when Major had like a 30 some yard run or something like that toward the east end zone. There was a timeout, or I think it might have been even switch quarter. And I told him, go on first sound, vary the count, do something.
Right.
They're starting.
So is that a decision of his inside of the huddle then that he's making up? Right. So easy and especially, Madden's only a sophomore, not a lot of experience behind the line there, and to make all of these calls. And it's easy to get into that rhythm and to get going, but you also have to be able to make adjustments to that throughout the game, especially when they're coming and blitzing and jumping that count.
Yeah, and I know as coaches we were talking the other night after the game. I think what we're going to do too in practice, we're not going to let him go on one. He's got all week. He's got to go on something else, and vary it and just get in that habit and that routine, and then once in a while go on one or whatever. But anytime, we're supposed to have the advantage on offense of knowing the snap count and when to get off. But if you're constantly going on one, then you lose that advantage.
Right.
So then hopefully it'll take a little of that aggressiveness away.
Well, I'm sure getting hit before you really have the ball in your hand. I know it caused a fumble on one of those plays as well, where the guy kind of busted through the line and was able to kind of break up the play before it even happened. That experience, and I'm sure watching the tape on Monday with the team and seeing like, hey man, this is kind of on you, right? That you have to be able to make that adjustment. That's your job as the quarterback. That he's going to do much better this week and obviously moving forward.
Yeah, and the other thing with that too is some of it falls. He's got to make the call because he's the one that determines the snap count, and then our linemen got to do a little better job of anticipating and seeing that. And you gotta be the protector. You gotta be the one who makes sure, okay, if that guy is coming in and he's blitzing, all right, and he comes into the free blocking zone, you can cut him, you can go low because he's in there at the snap count. And what that does is it takes, if he gets tired of getting his feet taken out from underneath him, it's going to take away some of his aggressiveness too.
Right. Awesome. So we did have a few touchdowns to observe here. What's the first play we're going to watch here, Coach?
All right. This is our first touchdown. And like we talked about before, they were stacking things inside, trying to take away the power game. And we probably ran more option in this game than I have for quite a while. But Isaiah, we're going to ride the fullback into the gap, and then he's going to pitch it, attack that defensive end and pitch to Major, who's going to score here. And Luke does a good job of getting the block.
Well, and both of those guys back there, Major throws a nice one. I hope we get to see that play on. I don't know if Luke ended up getting in for the score on that play, but one of the long ones headed the opposite way in the second quarter. Major threw the kid about 5 yards. So I hope that one's on the highlight reel too.
Yeah, we had some pretty good plays here, and I mean, we ran a lot of option. Most of our rushing yards, I think, were on that, and you can tell that the defensive ends, even though you practice it during the week, when you see it live speed with varsity guys running instead of your JV guys, because, you know, we have, every team has that issue where, okay, your scout offense is running the other team's stuff. Well, they're not going to run it near as good as the team that actually does it all the time. And so that's kind of...
Can we go back and watch this in slow motion? And I know that he, you know, Madden is putting that ball in there, but it looked like Isaiah had to get out and kind of make a block because of some penetration on there too. So let's watch this one in slow mo here this time.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just pure speed. You know, man on man beating it. Number 9. Now that's the linebacker that in the rest of the game was kind of making some of the blitzes too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, number 10, he was in. I don't remember how many tackles he had, but he was in on a bunch, and he's a pretty good linebacker. So, you know, and that's one of the things we tell Isaiah as a fullback is after the ride fake, you know, if he pulls it, then what you've got to do is, you know, you've got to get in somebody's way. You know, you can turn into a blocker, you know, right away and you get downfield. So.
Yeah, get a shoulder on somebody and impede their motion just a little bit.
Yeah. So we can go. Let's see what next one I got. All right, this is a pass play, and I'll come here. All right, we'll go back and I'll show you, kind of explain what this is. This is what we call a 43 waggle, and we fake fullback, and on this, if we're running, we call it a 43 counter blast, where fullback goes this way, near back over here. Well, first of all, let me back up. These two guys have a cross block down on the tackle, kick out the end, and then back leads on this linebacker. Well, we fake that play. You know, Isaiah hits here. He's going out in the flat. We got our right tight end is running what we call it's our number is 7, and it's a corner route. And then our backside end is running a post. And Madden's on the move here as he's booting out, and he sees this guy's coming out, so he throws it behind him and hits Tommy Crownizel right in stride here. So I'll go slow motion here on this one then.
Well, and the reason that your play action games work so well is that you're always so effective. Great block there, and that little kind of chip block kind of makes the play there. Isaiah getting out and being able to put that shoulder into the guy who's otherwise a free runner coming right at man. I mean, that can change the arm angle. It can change the platform that he's throwing off of. A great throw by the young man on the move like that too, to get it down the field, 20, 25 yards.
Yeah, he did a excellent job there. And, like our fullback, we tell them, when you're going to attack that outside shoulder of that defensive end. And that's the thing that probably a lot of people don't realize is how detailed on some things you have to be, because we don't tell him just to attack that guy. He has to attack the outside shoulder. That allows the quarterback to boot and get outside. If he hits him on the inside shoulder, he may still be able to pursue and make a play, but attacking the correct shoulder makes all the difference and allowed him to.
Well, and especially in 9-man football, because you have less blockers out there, especially when you're running your tight ends out on these routes, and that's kind of the design of the play. So you need him to be that extra blocker in there. And what a catch by Tommy on that one.
Yeah, because he got hit right away, held on to it. So, that was pretty cool here. All right, here is our new next touchdown, this is a 17 option. This is the other way. So we have Major as our lead blocker, and Luke is the one who scores here. So we'll do it live speed, then we can go back and do it.
I want everyone to watch this block that Major lays on this kid.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid was maybe a little off balance trying to chase the play already, but he wasn't going to let that one go.
Yeah, he did a good job, and, we'll go in slow motion here, so.
Great seal on the ends there.
Yeah. The other thing that's key, and let me back this up a little bit, and I'll show you. If you look, and for some reason, we're seeing two of Isaiah and two of Zach over here at end. I don't know why, if there was something on the camera lens, or I don't know what it is, but that's the only place. But anyway, you'll see this fake to Isaiah. He's coming in this big gap, and these guys bite on that fake, gets them sucked inside, and now we can wall people off. And now there's just
looks like we're playing 11-man football. I promise you, there's only 9 on the field here.
Yep.
But and the reason that these plays work, and we want people to kind of understand, is that you have so much tape now of that inside running game to Isaiah working so well. The effectiveness of it really makes these, because like you say, you watch it in real time, it's split-second decisions that these young men are having to make on the defensive side of the ball. And you have to be right up in that line, and it's so easy to get sucked in. A great job by the end there to seal that corner, and then Luke is just off to the races, man. The kid's got some wheels on him.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay.
This was a huge play. This was a huge play because it felt like momentum was shifting a little bit. They had been moving the ball where they weren't running it. They were running a pretty good screen game, which in the 9-man football, moving side to side, hard for guys to catch up behind the play and to move it out. Yeah. And I think the play before this, they had run a pretty good screen play out to the left here and down the sideline. So defense is probably a little tired. We're much later in the game here. Halfway through the third quarter, and the Kimball White Lake team had been moving the ball a little bit.
Yeah, and they did, and one of the things on this play, we've got Major out here on the receiver, and they run a little called a chair route where he goes out and then they try to pump fake. Well, Caden back here recognize that, and you can see him, especially on this one, where he takes these read steps and then he comes over and makes the interception. So he goes back. Now he's running. The ball's in.
He's already there. Yeah. He's already on it. And I watched the play. We were in the stands for this one, a home game, obviously. Coach, my hand was in the air and I was walking down the stands as the ball's about at its apex, right? Because that's just a play that we've watched Caden make so many times now, reviewing the tape, that it was inevitable. At the very least, he was going to break it up, but the kid's got hands, and we have a pretty high degree of confidence that he's going to come down with those.
And the other thing here that Major did is when the guy took after he took his out cut, come up, Major hit him. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize, there's a lot of difference between high school, college, and NFL rules. So in high school, you can hit that receiver, because, I've had people yell, he hit him past 5 yards. Well, there is no such thing in high school.
There's no illegal contact like that in high school football.
So you can hit him until the ball's in the air. And Major gets a shot in on him here, and we'll do it in slow motion. Then you'll see, Caden come over and make the interception.
Well, and what that does is completely changes the timing of their route. And he even stumbles a little bit there. So and he gets caught a little out of position, but is still able to get that little bit of contact. Looks like Major was still going to have a chance to maybe break that one up, too, if Caden doesn't come down with the ball.
Yeah. And, Major made some really good plays the other night on breaking up some passes and staying with guys. And so that was awesome to see him do.
Well, on a lot busier night, most teams aren't going to throw. I don't know how many times they threw the ball, but like you said, only 52 yards of rushing, I imagine, on not very many attempts. And towards the end of the game, when they're down 3 scores, they have to. They're kind of forced into that position where
Right.
they have to throw the ball and try to move it quickly down the field.
Yeah.
No, we kind of hit off it at the top. There was one sequence where I think there was 3 fumbles inside of a minute there.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was some Crisco on the ball there or just maybe a little bit of dew, maybe a little bit of sweat on it at one point, and just starts to get a little bit harder to hang on to.
Yeah, and I noticed toward the end of the game the grass was getting pretty wet and stuff like that. But, you know, when they fumbled, I mean, we had a pretty big hit on him that caused him. And then, you know, then when we turned around and fumbled it back, we had a first down fighting for extra yards. And there's 3 guys on you. And I've had to tell kids this before. And, you know, if you're in traffic, if there's 2-3 guys on you, you know, both arms on the ball and go down. Because the other thing, I've seen injuries happen at that time too. And, you know, so we can't afford to get anybody hurt here.
Well, and especially with as small as the teams are, right? I mean, yeah, there's a next man up philosophy, but you definitely don't want to lose one of your best players.
This was our last touchdown. This was a 17 option. So all 3 of our touchdowns the other night came on option plays. And I'll go regular speed, then we can back it up. So Madden rides. And in this case, you know, I'll show you what Madden could have maybe come a little farther, but he got it to Luke right away. The thing is, what they started doing, because we were getting more to the outside, this guy, this corner safety came out to the to the outside more, and Major just took him that way, and Luke made a good read and cut inside the block. And that's what we tell you guys got to read, you know, cut toward the blocker's butt. All right, so his butt would have been toward, he'd have been pushing the guy toward the sidelines, and then you cut inside. So we'll go slow motion here.
And this 17 option is something you guys have had a lot of success with these last few weeks. Once again, because, I mean, look, you have 3 guys that bite on the fake to Isaiah up the middle. And Luke's just off to the races. This safety's not going to catch him when he's running to that corner of the end zone.
Yeah, and he had to come from all the way on the other side of the field. So, you know, you're not going to make that play. You know, I mean, he took defensively, you know, you talk about pursuit angles, and he took a good pursuit angle, but the problem is he just didn't have enough real estate to catch him. So, because we were at the 22-yard line at the time, so.
No, it was a great game. I mean, ended up 18-0. Hard fought battle. Yards were hard to come by, and you had to play pretty conservative because they were doing really good. And do you have can you show us one of their punt plays where they kind of lined up in a shotgun? Do you have any of those snaps? I just wanted to kind of highlight that as something that I saw that was different, because they had a 4th down and maybe it wasn't very long. It was 4th and 7 in an area of the field that somebody, you know, could go for it and you wouldn't be surprised by that, and they kind of snuck it in there and punted out of the shotgun rather than a typical punt formation. And a little bit of trickery because you're not able to necessarily plan for that. Even if you know that they're known to do it, you can't just take one guy completely out of the play and throw them back there.
Let me see, I can find here.
And it ended up pinning us back down at the, inside of the 5-yard line, I think, on the 1 for sure. Yeah. I think the second time they tried it, it ended up going into the end zone and was a touchback. But
here is the second one here. So to kind of tell you to set it up, okay, so they're in what we call ace. So they have 5 guys on the line, 2 guys split out, and they've got just a single back here with the quarterback. And so we can't send anybody back because if they...
Well, now you're playing 9 on 8, you know?
Right. And so, but Jared did make an adjustment, and what we were going to do, him and Austin talked about this, and later we did it when they lined up in the same thing. Well, they did line up in punt formation. I think it was in the 4th quarter, But what we did is we took our nose out and we brought in another defensive back. He went back, but we kept everybody else here. So, we still had our 9 and we had somebody back. But like you'll see on this, it was just a quick kick, and this one ends up rolling into the end zone. But the first one, I think we were at like the 7 or 8 yard line.
Yeah, it was a play that I think surprised a lot of us in the stands, but obviously that's because they've seen the tape of how effective your punt block team has been.
Yeah.
And this one a little bit, like I said, the other one was 4th and 7 or 8, so you're in that position of the field where maybe they could do something like that, and it definitely tricked the fellas. Once again, shout out to Huddle for all the tape. This has been an incredible. When I could kind of approach you about doing this show, I didn't realize that it was going to be this easy for us to be able to review it and to go through these. But it was a wrinkle that I wanted to make sure that we kind of showcase to the fans as well that are watching, of which we've had plenty. So thank you guys so much for watching the show and sharing this with all your friends, supporting the athletic programs here. And it was just something that was different. We hadn't seen that yet from any of the other teams we faced, but that's also the nature of football. As you put more tape down, and we talked about it off camera last week, that you're sharing this tape with the other teams as well, so that you can build those relationships to get the tape from them, right? Because it's not necessarily, yes, everyone wants to win, but it's about building up these young men and these young athletes into the best that they can be. And, if you're someone who wants to play it close to the vest, well, then maybe you're not going to have that opportunity for tape when it comes down to the playoffs and facing teams that you haven't seen a lot or don't know very well.
Yeah, I have people contacting me all the time about tape, and I always share it because we're going to want it too sometime, and it makes a big difference. You don't want to go into a game blind, not knowing what other teams do. So it's been a good deal, and Huddle's a great deal. The only when I first started in this, it was we'd have to meet someplace halfway, and that was fun too. I do miss that because then you get to know the coaches a little better and everything. But there's so many things, and I don't think we've even scratched the surface of what's available. And sometimes what I can do is you can actually almost use this like a telestrator, so you can draw arrows where they're supposed to go or who they're supposed to block, and then you can put a text box on there and say, okay, here's what you should have done on this play, and stuff like that. So
spend a little less time having to do that when you're in the room. You obviously get a very limited amount of time with the kids when they're here to be able to pre-plan for a lot of this at home. And I'm sure this is your life. I know you're a teacher here at the school, but football season, you're spending every waking minute thinking about football and what you can do better and how you can improve the quality of play on the field and improve these young men's lives, really.
Well, and one of the things about the game of football that we preach to these kids, because like we talked about adversity, and we faced adversity, and we had to make some stands, and the kids did a great job. But I've told them, the thing you don't realize, and some of them I know do because they've had things happen in their lives, that everything's not going to be rosy all the time. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be problems. So how do you respond to them? And I think football is a great teacher of that. Because when those bad things happen, and like I said, I hope they never happen to you, but if they do, how do you respond? You gotta live your life. You gotta move on. You gotta be tough. And the other thing with football, if one guy's not doing his job, it can screw things up. It's really hard for one guy to take over a football game. All right. Now a team can dominate, but usually one guy. And a lot of times, the guys in the backfield get all the glory and stuff. But if the guys up front in the trenches aren't doing their job, nobody's getting any glory. So it's a definite team game that to me the ultimate, and it also teaches you a lot about life too.
Excellent. So what do we have to look forward to next week? Are you guys playing next week?
Yeah, we have we go up to Parkston.
Rivalry game. The next, I mean, the next big program over. I know there's, trip is in between here and there, but having only been here in Bon Homme County for 5 years, I know what it means to play against Parkston in really every single sport.
Yeah, and it's a big rivalry, and part of that, they've, Bonham and Parkston have been in the conference together for years, and competed against each other. They were in the 11-man together for several years, and basketball, volleyball, wrestling is very competitive, and I mean it's so, but they've played in the state championship game the last 2 years, won one and lost one, so they've got a lot of pride, and I think our kids do too, and we're just gonna go up there and we're going to do our best to have them ready to go this week and see what happens. I think, that would be, a huge win if we could, pull that one out.
Yeah, well, and having been to the state championship game 2 years in a row, like you said, they're bringing a lot of experience to the table. Now, whether a lot of the upperclassmen have graduated and moved on from those teams has an effect on that, but these younger kids have been out there and have tasted that too, and they want to get back there. So you have to really be on your game. You have to be prepared. And it's great that they kind of had a game like this where you faced the adversity, you overcame the adversity, where, we talked about the game, especially against Freeman, that, you faced it and not necessarily folded, but that team kind of laid it on you. Yeah. And now that you had this where, this game could have got out of hand with the short fields that they were given, but the defense was able to buckle down. And I think that gives them a lot of confidence going into the next game and into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think, I don't know why that's doing that. Getting that win, definitely helped, our kids' psyche. And I mean, if, we'd have gave up some scores there and end up getting beat, that would have been, they'd have been kind of down going into Parkston, but, I think they'll be up. But the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, and, I've had this in the past before other school, is for 2 years they had kids that competed that, it won and got runner-up. These younger guys that are now varsity were practicing against that every day, and that does nothing but make you better. Because a lot of times for them, for those younger guys, practice was a heck of a lot harder than the JV games.
Right.
And so now they're, by competing against those kids every day, you learn stuff, you get better, and if you, and now, when it's your turn to play varsity, you're better prepared for that. So,
and that's the difference between a good team and a good program, right?
Yeah, and so, and every once in a while, you're going to have those, you're going to have down years and stuff like that, but hopefully the downturns aren't as severe if you've got players that'll invest, lift weights, challenge each other, because if you set the tone in those good years, then just realize that, hey, if I want to see the field, I better get my rear end in the weight room. I better get stronger. I better do the things that coach wants me to do, or I'm going to be standing on the sidelines all the time, and that's not as much fun as playing, obviously. And so those younger kids see that, and they realize that my gosh, I better do that too. And and the thing is, I always tell kids, with the weight room especially, it's addicting. That feeling you get, that sense of accomplishment. I was at my first job out of college. I learned that. I was in Grant Dual, the northeast part of the state, and they had a really good weight program. And some people would kind of criticize some of the boys because I don't know if you've ever lived or been in winter in northeast South Dakota, but it's not very fun. It's cold.
I went to school for a semester in Brookings, and that was far enough northeast for me, Coach.
Yeah. And this is another hour or so farther north than that, and I was just going like, but anyway, these kids would come to school in coats and parkas and sweatshirts, and then they'd get to their locker and they take their coat off and everything and take their sweatshirt off, and some of them would wear tank tops, some of them, you know, tighter t-shirts, and some people kind of criticized, why are they doing that? I said, you know, and the guy that was a football coach up there was a tremendous coach, and he, Kevin Berg was his name, and he said, they're proud of the work they've put in. Don't criticize them for hard work. And, you know, so I think it made some other people think, but, you know, that's the attitude. These kids work and they do these things, you know, and there's, you know, and there's no guarantees. You can work your tail off and do everything, but if somebody else is more talented and another team is more talented, then you get beat. But at least if you tried your best, you don't have to look back and say, you know, only if I would have went to the weight room more, maybe we would have won some more games. You don't have to worry about that because you tried your best, and, you know, sometimes, you know, it doesn't work out, and that's the way life is too.
Definitely. Well, Coach, thank you so much for spending a little time with me again here. I want to shout out our sponsor, Eagle Eye Media, who's been helping us with the editing process here. I hope we didn't make your job too hard today, Paul. And thanks again, Coach, and congratulations on your recognition. Great win here for the boys at home. You're going out of town to Parkson next week, and homecoming's coming up soon, so I'm sure everybody's excited about the next few weeks of Cavalier football.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. This has been the Scene Project Sports Network. This is CAVS Hour, and stay tuned for more great action next week.
SPSN.
Thanks for tuning in to the Scene Projects Podcast Network. We appreciate you listening. You can find more at thesceneprojects.com. Join our community.
Pour that love on me like water. Got an ocean full of love that's made for two. We sail upon the ocean breeze and sunshine feels like you loving me. We got a good thing going on, you know that's true. I'm feeling fine, fine, fine. For your love on me like wine. Come on, fill me up. Let me take a sip from your loving. I'm feeling fine.